the Society of Children and Adults with Autism.
Well, good morning. Before we begin, just a short introduction of myself. I'm a researcher at the Bar Yehuda University Autism Laboratory. I teach BED students at the Lewinsky Teacher College in Tel Aviv, and I'm the National Autism Counselor at the Israeli Ministry of Education. In this capacity, I'm in charge of training general education and special education teachers in how to work with children with autism in their classes. So this is relevant to what we're going to speak about now. So why do we really need a social inclusion program? Well, in the next few slides, I will try to answer and explain this. We will go over and look for the ASD prevalence in general education in Israel. We would look at the general education professional staff ignorance, attitudes, and ambivalence, and we'll see how it's related to what I was speaking about. So if we really overview the Israeli education system, and we're looking here at the numbers or data from last year, the year of 2018 and 19, the Israeli education system holds something like 2.4 million children. Among them, there are 260,000 children with disabilities and more than 20,000 students with ASD between the ages of 3 and 21, which is a little bit less of 1% of the entire population of students. Like in many Western countries, the prevalence of students with ASD is increasing with the years. You can see the numbers, you can see the graph, okay? And it's in all categories: kindergarten, special education schools, communication classes, which is special education classes in regular general education schools, and of course in the individually placed children category, and the numbers are rising. If we will look close at the category of individually placed children, last year we had more than 6,000 children that are individually placed, and this year we have more than 7,000 children which are individually placed. And the meaning of all is that most of general education teachers are meeting with more and more individually placed students with autism, and that's what started us to think how should we address it. You can see here the literature, but they demonstrate the picture that we have in Israel also. The general education professional staff are ignorant about autism. They hold or maintain low factual knowledge regarding the assessment or diagnosis process, the assessment or diagnosis methods, and they don't know much about the evidence-based practice treatment. So they don't have the knowledge and they don't have the tools on how to work with children with autism. In this particular research, they found that only 60% of professional staff that were working directly with children with autism can actually correctly define ASD, and we find it also in Israel, so it's kind of the same picture in our country. In 2018, we conducted few focus group meetings. We were just meeting with general education teachers that are working in their classes with students with ASD, and they were reporting of frustration, loneliness. They didn't have no one to talk with about their frustration and their feelings towards the inclusion of students with autism. And the most shocking thing that they were telling us is that they are fear of the inclusion of students with autism in their classes, and it was quite amazing for us. They were quite ambivalent. At first, they were showing and demonstrating negative attitudes. They didn't want to have, they were just saying it specifically, I don't want to have a child with autism in my class, I don't want to teach him, I don't know how to handle this, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the practical tools. And on the other hand, in the same words, they were saying to us, but I would like to know, I would like to gain more information, more practical tools in order to to have this child in my class, so they were quite ambivalent in these talks. All of the teachers that we met, and I'm talking about dozens of them, were saying to us, I was never trained to be a special education teacher. What do you want from me, really? I went to the college, I went to the university, I was trained to be a regular or general education teacher. I was never trained to be a special education teacher. And by the way, this is the name of the program that we call it in Israel. I was never trained to be a special education teacher, because they were all saying it to us. So who really cares about autism? Well, we care about autism, so we've come up with two different social inclusion programs. One is for general education teachers and teacher assistants, and by far we managed to work with 240 of them in the last year. And another program was for junior high, typically developing students in the age of 13 to 15, okay? And by far we were working with only 3 classes. It's really new, 70 in total. And if you ask yourself, why did we decided to work only with junior high, typically developing students? The reason is that in Israel, elementary schools holds a higher number of children with autism that are individually placed. But as soon as they go to, they move to junior high, the numbers are dropping very dramatically. And the reason, and Peter Vermeulen just on this stage spoke about it yesterday, the uncertainty, the unclarity, the stress that comes up with the transition from elementary school to junior high. And we wanted to address this issue, so we worked with peers in junior high schools. So what are the key elements? First of all, in each school that we work with several schools, it was tailor-made. I know that everybody understands that you need to do it, but it was really important, because each school in Israel is different culturally, demographically. You needed to address the certain issues of this school, and we had to adapt the program to each school. Second of all, even so that I'm working in the Ministry of Education, I needed to get the approval of the local Ministry of Education and local authority representatives. If you don't work with them, it doesn't work. We had to lower objections and to work with them, because they didn't want the program from the beginning. And when we were working with professionals, and I'm talking about professionals only, they have to submit a final report about the students in their class. It's very important that they will address the specific student they are working with and bring it to the class where we work on these issues. And the most, let's say, important key element is that we're not trying to fix the students. Usually the program that I come up with, that I meet on the literature and in other areas in other countries, is that they're trying to fix the students. We're not, in this program, we're not trying to fix the students at all. We're trying to fix the system. We work with teachers, with teacher assistants, with classmates, and it's really important. Okay, the work model is quite clear. We discuss case studies in 3 levels. Teachers are bringing, or students are bringing case studies into the meetings, okay? And we try to discuss these in 3 levels, in the cognitive, emotional, and behavioral level. Quite simple. On the cognitive level, we try to provide them, even classmates, with current practical and evidence-based practice knowledge regarding all these categories. I'm just gonna highlight some of them. First of all, we bring adults with autism that finished high school and coming back to school to talk about their experiences as students with autism in a regular class. This is really important. Of course, we're talking about sexual education, about what we call getting out of the autism closet, okay, about identity issues and moral issues, and about the importance of peer group and classmate supports and more. When we work with staff about in the cognitive level, the key elements are that autism, as you probably all know, is an invisible disability. What we keep hearing from them is that they're saying to us, if he's that smart, why is he stimming? Why is he flapping his hands? They don't understand. We try to work on this cognitive level to explain why they do these things. We talk about sameness preference that is like universal. Everybody prefer to live, work, and study, again, with someone who is like them. And that difference, of course, creates distance. And our goal is to allow or to enable neurodiversity in classroom. It's really hard, but we are trying to work on this. On the emotional level, we allow, and this is for the first time, this was a shock to me at the beginning, we allow them to express and to regulate their emotions during interactions with students with ASD. They used to hold this and not express and regulate their emotions usually. And I'll give you an example in just 1 minute. On the behavioral level, we're talking that a lack of reaction, which means ignoring, is a reaction, especially when you work with students with autism, and that overreaction blocks communication. And I'll give you an example because I think it will be much clearer. One of the issues that was brought to us in on one of the meetings is that about students that are studying in a regular class, in a general education class, and he's touching himself in public. And the teacher didn't know what to do with it. So first of all, in the cognitive level, we were trying to understand why he's doing it, okay? On the second level, the emotional level, we tried to feel, she was trying to express herself and say how does it makes her feel when he's touching himself in public? How does she feel with it, okay? On the third level, on the behavioral level, we were talking on how should she react when her student is touching himself in public. Should she ignore it? Of course not, or overreact, and we were talking about this in class. So you can see the chain of thinking here. It's moving a bit from cognition to emotion to behavior, which is, of course, a reaction. This means that we are giving them practical tools on how to address these issues. When we were working with students, we didn't bring this case studies. We were bringing them texts that were written by students with ASD that were learning in general education. Let's look at one of the texts in the cognitive level. If you don't have a book of social rules, that's what he was saying, how can you be so sure? I always have to follow your rules, so maybe you are having a problem, okay? On the emotional level, the others, this is what a student with autism have wrote to us for this kind of meeting with students. The other students in my class are not my friends. They are my associates, my classmates. When will you get it that in my mind, I already have other friends? On the behavioral level, whenever you ask me, who did you play with today? What did you do today? Why wouldn't you call a friend and invite him over? I know that you already know the answer. And then I don't feel like talking to you anymore. We brought these texts into the meetings with regular education students, and we were discussing this with them in order to explain them autism in this kind of way. So the feedback we got from the staff at the end of the 5 meetings that we had, 5 groups that we conducted, were that most of them, or even all of them, requested to extend the training period. They wanted a second level of knowledge. They wanted to know more. They were reporting of practical daily use in theory and evidence-based practice methods in their work, which is wonderful, which means they have implemented what we were talking about in the meetings. They were reflecting better ASD understanding in the final reports. They were writing to us the profile of the students that they work with in their classes, and we can see that they reflect better understanding in all categories. And when we were talking about loneliness and frustration in the beginning, they were cultivating communities of practice. So now they're not alone. In their school, they have other teachers that they can talk with about their feelings towards the inclusion of students with autism, and even to consult with them. So, finally, what's next? And of course, we will expand this program to other cities and other schools in Israel, because we found it very, very good, very effective. And now we work and we're trying to develop, and actually we're in the end of the developing of Greek mythology and complex emotion group quests. Again, it's interactive, and we were trying to address it. Now we're trying to work with elementary school children in the age of 11, 12, 5th and 6th grade, and we're working with complex emotions and Greek mythology's heroes, like from the mythology, and we're trying to work together, regular students, general education students, and students with ASD together, in order to work with us and to improve their emotional ability and their inclusion in classes. That's it.